even more of kind of the hellish scrum that it already is. The concept is a good one. This particular use of it is not.
So the concept is a good one. What do you think about that, Karen Kahn? Because I think a lot of people would look at unbundling, which is the industry expression they use for, charging you a certain fee for this, for that, and the other. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, oh, God, the airlines are nickel and diming us. What do you think of unbundling?
I think unbundling is a good idea in certain respects. I think the end goal may not be achieved, which is to get people to think carefully about what it is they really need. I think the goal we have is to show them that fares are so low to begin with, and you've been getting all of these things for free, that now is the time to think carefully about what you really want to purchase. And many of those things you can probably do without, because some of them you didn't want anyway.
Okay, so people should not count on getting that free Salisbury steak on their next flight to Albany.
Well, I don't think it ever existed in the first place, but I always tell people to come prepared with your own snacks so that you aren't dependent on the airlines, most of which don't serve food on domestic flights anymore that are short flights, and very well may serve something you don't want anyway.
Karen Kahn, it sounds like, I haven't asked you this question directly, but it sounds like you agree with Patrick Smith when he says that for a long time, airfares have just been unrealistically low when you look at the actual cost of flying a person across the country.
I definitely agree, and now am very much an advocate of separating in the fare you pay the price of the fuel from the price of the taxes from the price of the ticket. My feeling is the airline should be able to regulate what we call the ticket price, given that the fuel and the taxes are pretty much something they can't make any changes to.
So in other words, you're saying that an airline ticket, when you buy it, should itemize those things to make it clear. Why? To make it clear to the customer that this is how much you're paying for fuel, this is how much you're paying for taxes?
I think so. I think if those are fixed costs that nobody, can get around, then I think if you want some competition in the market, you show them what the real ticket costs, and that way they can decide what it is they want to purchase.
Any opinion on that, Patrick Smith?
I think that's a good idea because the taxes on airfares are so high and tend to be obfuscated by the way the pricing is done. And jumping back a second, I would like to say that I think, if you want to argue that the airlines on average offer a substandard product service-wise, I think that's a fair and reasonable point of debate. But I do think that if you have a problem with paying, say, $1,000 to fly halfway around the world, in this $180 million machine going 600 miles an hour in near perfect safety, then that's maybe being a bit unreasonable. I think, people are paying just a few pennies a mile. You can fly nonstop from any major city in the world to pretty much any other major city in the world, and the impressiveness of that is just lost on so many people because it's just something we've gotten used to.
Well, let's get back to our callers. Let's go to Jerry in Mission Valley. Jerry, go ahead. You're on with Patrick Smith and Karen Kahn.
Thanks for having me on. I'm an airline employee for over 20 years, and, one of the things that always boggles me when I hear passengers, complain about the price of fares today is, basically the price of a fare today is what it's been for the last 25, 30 years. I mean, in the mid-'80s, I was paying $380, $400 to go, from San Diego to New York, and that's what a fare is going for today. And I always ask people, what else are you paying for today that you were paying the same price 25 years ago? And, I think people are a little unrealistic when they look at things like, asking, why are we charging for a meal, or why is food not for free? Where else do you go that you get free food for being, you don't sit on the Amtrak and get free food. You don't go to your doctor's office and ask for a free can of soda. I mean, I think people are a little unrealistic about what they're looking to get from an airline for the price that they're willing to pay today.
Okay, Jerry, thank you very much. Let's take another call. Mike is in Carlsbad. Mike, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I used to work for one of the majors, and I agree with Patrick's comment that we're completely spoiled. It's, to be able to go from San Diego to Bangkok for $1,000 is unbelievable. But my point is that I think at least part of the frustration that passengers are feeling these days, and they're directing their anger towards the airline, really ought to be directed at terrorists, because a lot of the lines that we wait in, even though people know rationally that it's not the airline's fault, somehow we seem to bundle all of that negative emotion and aim it at the airline, when in reality, it's not United Airlines' fault.
Right, but Mike, thank you very much, Mike, and I think I know where Patrick wants to go with this, because Mike says the people we need to blame are the terrorists, and Patrick, you think some of that blame needs to go to the TSA.
Well, I think just about all of it does. I mean, they've created this completely ridiculous system. There's just no other way to put it. And passengers are victimized, airlines are victimized, and one of the reasons TSA has been able to get away with this nonsense for as long as they have is that there's been very little kind of formal outrage or protest directed at the agency, and I think a lot of that is because people are afraid of them. At this point, TSA has become this bullying entity that kind of frightens people and the airlines, too, into submission.
And TSA, for those who don't get the acronym, is the Transportation Safety Administration, and they're the people, when you line up to get on a plane, at least not line up to get on a plane, but when you line up to get to your gate, they're the ones who check your bag, who don't check your bags, who look through your bags to make sure you're not carrying a bomb or something like that.
Well, they're not even checking for that. They're mostly checking to make sure you don't have a little pair of nail clippers or a tiny bottle of shampoo. I mean, if you think about the millions of wasted hours of manpower and not to mention the $6 billion that the agency uses annually, effectively for nothing. I mean, it's infuriating.
Well, we do have to take a break. I'd like to get Karen Kahn's opinion on what the TSA is doing, and then we'll move on to other subjects. We're talking about the present and the future of air travel in the United States as airlines continue to have financial problems and as fuel costs spike dramatically. Give us a call if you want at 619, not 619, 888-895-KPBS. Coming up in the next hour of These Days, Troy Johnson, a music critic who's frequently heard on These Days, joins us to talk about an interesting aspect of his life. When he was 10 years old, Troy learned that his mother was a lesbian. The struggle he went through to come to terms with that is described in his humorous book called Family Outing. We'll talk about that coming up in the next hour of These Days, so stay tuned. Right now, we're talking about the present and the future of air travel in the United States. I'm joined by phone by Patrick Smith and Karen Kahn. Patrick Smith is an airline pilot. He's also author of Salon.com's Ask the Pilot column. Captain Kahn is an airline pilot, an aviation expert, and author of the book Flight Guide for Success, Tips and Tactics for the Aspiring Airline Pilot. Our call-in number, 1-888-895-KPBS. And before we move on to another caller, Karen Kahn, let me ask you about what the TSA is doing. And we don't have a person on the show who represents the Transportation Safety Administration, so maybe I should take their side and argue that 9/11 did happen, and there was a demand in this country to increase security at airports, and I guess that's what they're trying to do. Do you think that it's all a waste of time?
I think you're going to find that the TSA is not going away. I think all of the things that Patrick has to say are very true, and they're frustrations that he and I experience often. I think rather than spend a lot of time discussing how much we dislike it, I think let's talk quickly about some things a passenger can do to deal with it and get through it with the least amount of hassle. I think the first thing is ticket smart. That means when you buy a ticket, make sure you buy a round-trip ticket. Make sure you don't pay cash for it, because those are all flags to get you extra security. And if you belong to an airline's frequent flyer program, be sure that number goes on your record and onto your ticket. That way, they don't spend extra time on you. The other thing you can really do to help yourself is pack smart. if the last trip you took is in a car, dump your suitcase out on the bed at home and take out everything